and a man came. And this man was 150 kilo. He could hardly walk. And so Michael and when his wife saw it, she said, "This is your baby." And she was a nurse. She just said, "I don't know anything about this." So Michael didn't have much, but he had the book Back to Eden, Jethro Kloss. So we sat down with the man and he wrote down all his problems. And he had a terrible skin rash all over his body. He lifted up one of the folds and he had this big tumour. And he said, "Oh, my bowels." He said, "I haven't been to the toilet for a week." So Michael's looking at all of these things and he could hardly walk and he had diabetes. And Michael said to him, "We'll fix you." So Michael said, "I knew that the first thing you've got to do is get the plumbing going." And so Michael made up the 2 litres of the seawater mix. And what he did was he put a little portable toilet in the man's room, I guess similar to what some people may put in a caravan. And he gave the man the 2 litres and he said, "Things will start happening in it maybe the next hour." Anyway, Michael said he was walking up and down the veranda like a father waiting for the baby to be born. And after about an hour, the man yelled out, "Yeah, I'm done." And he went in and the man said, "Oh, that was so good." He'd got the plumbing going. Michael said he could hardly lift up the little portable toilet. And then he made him a steam bath. And what he did with the steam bath, outside he put like a tarp, and then he put a kettle underneath and he had cords going to the kettle and he got him steam bathing. And the man could hardly walk, so we just get him to go to the door and Michael would just throw a big bucket of cold water over them, and then he went back into the steam bath. And he'd do that 3 times. And then Michael said he knew he had to clean him, so we got him to lie down and Michael scrubbed his whole body, and then he got him to lay down in the sun, and he had to hold the fold up and get the sun going in on the tumour. Do you know that man totally healed? No. And Michael didn't know anything. What does the Bible say? It says, God has chosen the foolish things of this world to confound the things that are wise. And God has chosen the weak things of this world to confound the things which are mighty. And what Michael had was Jethro Kloss's book. That's all he had. And he got him to exercise and he could hardly walk. So we got a big tin that was about this high with a handle and a lid on it. So he told the man, "Do a few steps, then sit." Do a few steps and then sit. And every day he did a few more steps and then a few more steps. And he said, we just charged $400 a week back then. And he said, and every week the man would take $400 out and give it to Michael. So he ended up staying there for quite a while. I think he ended up staying about 2 months. So he lost a huge amount of weight. I think he went down to something like, he went down to 100 kilos. And he just wanted to stay. And he said, I'll be your gardener. And he would just hoe this garden. So that was Michael's first experience. But I tell it to you because he had nothing and he knew nothing. But he knew that God had called him to do the health work. And I'm sure back then he would never have dreamed that, that he is the business manager has been of quite a few very successful health retreats. But it's a good story to show you just start where you are. And he said his second guest was a 15-year-old girl. And this 15-year-old girl rang up and said, I've got kidney stones and they want to take them out. They're thinking they might have to take one of my kidneys out. And so Michael said, we can help you. But he said, when he said at that time, it came out of his mouth before he realised what he was saying, and he almost thought, where'd that come from? So the girl travelled down. Now, meanwhile, the girl's mother rang up Michael, and she was angry. She said, how dare you? how dare you take my daughter? I'm going to get the authorities on you. She was angry, very angry. And so Michael just let her talk, and Michael just said, well, your daughter has chosen to do this. When the girl arrived, Michael discovered she didn't drink any water. She drank a lot of soda pop, soft drinks, and she had bags of lollies. You call them sweets, candies, something like that. So Michael confiscated all of those and put her on juices for a couple of days. And again, he didn't know very much, but did the isotonic water drink and got the bowels moving. And then little by little, the girl responded very, very well. She ended up not having to have her kidney out. And the mother ended up ringing up Michael and apologising because when the daughter came home, she was so much better. So we have a divine appointed plan in these simple 8 laws of health. And when I read that it's the true remedies, it is. But do you know what I find? People are constantly wanting wonder cures. And that's what you'll find, wonder cures, like this will help, this supplement, this. But I just keep going back to the laws. If there was a wonder cure, it would be the human body. So that's how he first started. So when Michael and I had married, he'd been the business manager at Living Valley Springs for quite a while. So is Michael trained in that? Not at all. Michael trained as an electrician and didn't like it and really hardly ever did it again, except when he wired the house and got the caravan. When he finished his electrician apprenticeship, he wasn't a Christian, he started driving trucks. And it wasn't long after that that he became a Christian. Then he drove taxis. And when his wife was getting very unsettled, he decided to go to America. And that she liked the idea of that. She was an Aboriginal woman and they had 2 little children. So Michael decided to take boomerangs. Do you know boomerangs? The Aboriginals throw them. There's a certain way you can throw them and it comes back to you. And they would throw them and it would, get a bird or kangaroo. So what he did was he practiced and practiced and practiced until he could throw the boomerangs really well. And they went over to America and they had a whole big carton of boomerangs, and what they'd do is they'd go around to markets and you'd have some Australian songs, maybe Waltzing the Tilda, something like that, Give Me a Home Amongst the Gum Trees, or Kookaburra Sits on the Old Gum Tree, and he sold boomerangs and he made quite a bit of money. And this was probably 6 months after his health retreat experience and his and the house burning down, of course, was a little while before that. And then his wife didn't like it doing that anymore, and so he sold the rest of the boomerangs and he sold his car and came back. Now when he came back into Australia, and he'd sent his wife and children back earlier, so he came back by himself, Gary Martin, a friend of his, met him at the airport and said, Mike, I had a dream a week ago that I had to meet the plane and ask you to come and start Living Valley Springs with me. We want to start a health retreat. And then he said to Michael, I didn't know when you were coming in, and I was so restless. My wife said, look, just go down to Brisbane Airport and meet every plane. So he said, I've been in the airport for days. I've been meeting every plane, and again, this is probably getting to the late 80s, mid or late 80s. So Michael said, yeah, I've just come back from America. So Michael went with him and they started Living Valley Springs. And Gary Martin is he's a accountant, so his training is in figures and maths and office. And he was also convicted. And both these men were just 30. That's all they were, just 30 years of age with a very young family. So Michael said, I'll be the groundsman. And so he got the grounds in order. And Michael said when they started the health retreat, they had a house. And they lived in caravans. One of them lived in a caravan, one lived in the shed, and the house they had for the health retreat. And finally they got a health director, and he would consult with the guests. But after a year, he ran off with one of the guests. And so Gary and Michael are talking to each other, and they said, one of us has to be the health director, because we haven't had a lot of success with health directors. And Gary said to Michael, you be the health director. And Michael said, no, I'm really not good at that. Gary, you've done a bit of massage, you be the health director. So Gary said, righto. And they did the same thing that Michael had first done. They'd do the questionnaire, and then they'd go, after they'd done it with the guests, and they'd go and they'd look up the books. What do you do for this? What do you do for that? And they did the 2 days juicing. So you've got a daily program there as well. So, and this is the program that they did at Living Valley Springs. And we found that it worked so well that we implemented this program too. But that's the program they started with. And Gary just studied, and I find that the more you're helping people, that's the best school to be in. Watching their responses, their reactions, it teaches you so much. And Gary eventually was awarded a certificate in naturopathy because of his work in the field. They even had a board there to question him, and he could answer every question. And his first study was Ellen White, The Ministry of Healing, Jethro Kloss's book, Anatomy and Physiology, and that's basically how they started.